Joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show is Peter King. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing well, Rich. How about you?
Did I get that right? I mean, Tom basically told you Saturday night what he Instagrammed out today, right? Pretty much?
I think so. I haven't seen it. Somebody. I was on another show a while ago, and they told me, "Hey, Brady says he's coming back," and I said, "Yeah."
Well, let me read it to you because let me read it to you. When you mean another show, you probably mean a lesser show, but I understand what you're saying, Peter. He wrote at the end of his Instagram posting, "You don't always win. You can, however, learn from that failure. Pick yourself up with great enthusiasm and place yourself in the arena, and that's right where you will find me because I know I still have more to prove." And he left it at that. That's what he said.
Yeah, he said to me the other night, "I know I can still play at a championship level." Rich, Tom Brady wants to play football again. Mm-hmm. There's very little doubt that unless 32 teams say we don't want Tom Brady, there's very little doubt he will play football next year. And I think there's a good chance. I'm not saying it's better than 50-50. I just think it's a good chance that he will play for a team other than the Patriots.
Well, then let's go into that. Why would that happen? Because we did see with our own two eyes, obviously the Brady that won Super Bowls in the early aughts is not the Brady that we're seeing now. But we're also seeing some throws, like a couple throws he made to Edelman in the fourth quarter of that game that had as much zip on it as anybody else that would throw it to Edelman. And there's nobody else.
He also threw a ball 64 yards in the air into the end zone.
Exactly, and so and the cupboard's bare behind him right now, as we know. So why wouldn't Brady be back in New England, Peter?
Well, because if you look at what would have to happen, this is just my opinion.
Yes.
Tom Brady didn't tell me, well, they have to do this, or this has to happen for me to be back. This is totally my inference, my reading of the tea leaves.
Okay.
In my opinion, I don't think Tom Brady wants to go anywhere that he doesn't have a good chance to win. And Rich, do you remember this year in Buffalo after the Patriots beat Buffalo but looked crappy doing so?
Yes.
And afterwards, Tom Brady was as unhappy, upset, whatever word you would use at a press conference after a game as he's been one of the lowest he's ever been after a football game. Okay. And they just won on the road in Buffalo, the best team in their division other than them. And so everybody said, well, geez, why is that? This is, again, I am just reading tea leaves here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because Tom Brady is a very close to the vest guy. All right. But my feeling at that time and my feeling over the weekend was, and I'll tell you why I felt this way over the weekend, my feeling at the time is that Tom Brady had to know that with this cast that we have right now, we can't win a Super Bowl. We can't win a championship. They have not given us enough to win. And Bill Belichick has done a marvelous job over the years in figuring out when to let guys go and who to sign and all that stuff. This was not Bill Belichick's finest architectural hour. I can tell you that much. Anybody who watched the Patriots could see that. And you fast forward to after this game, and Tom Brady basically, as I wrote in my column this week, after leaving him 10, 12 minutes, however long I had with him, my overriding thought was, what happened tonight did not surprise Tom Brady one bit. Mm-hmm. And, it doesn't matter what the seed was, where they were. Hey, look, Rich, after Halloween this year, the Miami Dolphins were 5-4 and the Patriots were 4-5. So, what has happened should not be a shock to anybody, nor going into the future. You ask, why wouldn't he go back to New England? I think he would be happy to go back to New England if there was a team that had a couple of big-time wide receivers. With all due respect to Julian Edelman this year, he was good. He only caught 100 balls, in my opinion, because Brady had nobody else.
And let's put it in real time then, Peter, because you know the way this works is that the new league year is going to hit, and if he's a free agent, then all bets could be off. It would actually potentially harm New England's cap should he be cut or traded, and by the new league year, Brady won't know unless it's Kraft and Belichick telling him in a meeting that they have somewhere off campus, on campus, wherever. Like, trust us, we'll get you the receivers you need. He won't have that question that you say would be paramount for him to have answered.
But listen, if Belichick and Kraft put him in a room in a whatever, if they sat together somewhere in the next 7 weeks,
which is going to happen,
and Belichick looked him in the eye and said, I'm going to get 2 receivers, and we will, if we don't get a really good one in free agency, our top pick is going to be a tight end. I think that would be, look, you talk like I know what's going through Tom Brady's head.
Nobody does.
Tom Brady wants to have a chance. And watching him this year, I just don't think he felt with those weapons he had a chance.
Well, nobody also knows what's going through. We can assume what we know what's going through Bob Kraft's head, which is like, there's no way I'm going to let Tom Brady wear somebody else's uniform. And then there's the question of Bill Belichick. Do you think there's any chance that
he doesn't want him to wear another team's uniform? But what Bob Kraft said to me is that I hope and pray that, number one, Tom Brady is back with New England, or number two, he retires as a Patriot. Well, that's not what Tom Brady hopes for. And the fact that Tom Brady has his freedom, Tom Brady's playing football. So he might do one of the two things that Bob Kraft hopes and prays for, but he's not going to do the second one. Is not an option. That is, unless nobody wants him, which I think somebody will want him somewhere.
Oh, please. I think that's for sure. What are the odds that Belichick, in a meeting with Kraft, looks at him and says, I told you Jimmy Garoppolo was our guy, and now we're in this situation. Now let's just rip the Band-Aid off. I've got this plan, draft this person, this free agent, however.
Rick, I think that's look, Bill Belichick, a quarter century ago, enraged the people of Cleveland by benching Bernie Kosar for Todd Philcox. Okay? And 18 years ago, or 19 years ago, whatever it was, he kept the highest paid football player in the NFL, Drew Bledsoe, on the bench when he was healthy enough to play. And he continued to start Tom Brady. And I would bet a lot of money that wasn't a popular decision in the owner's office at that time. But Bill Belichick, Charlie Weiss was on my podcast this week.
Okay.
And obviously Charlie Weiss coached for 5 years on that first Patriots staff when Belichick got the job in 2000. And he told me that, knowing Bill the way he did, he feels that the Devin McCourty decision and the loyalty to Devin McCourty would be just as deep as the loyalty and the decision on Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. And, it's tough a decision. And he's going to do what he feels. Hey, I give Belichick a ton of credit for only thinking about one thing, and that is the team, the team, the team.
Right.
He's a Bo Schembechler guy. And it's ironic, obviously, that Brady's a Michigan guy, too, because, that is the way that Bill Belichick is going to go forward. And if he feels that Tom Brady is his guy for the next 2 years, I think he's going to try hard to make it happen. But if he has some doubt about that, either because of the finances of it or whatever, I will not be at all surprised to see him go hard after, and don't laugh at this, say an Andy Dalton or a Teddy Bridgewater, to try to make them either a short-term bridge to Jarrett Stidham or to somebody else who they draft, or to just give him the job.
Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show, and obviously we've got weeks to see how this all plays out. I know we could sit here and talk McCarthy, and we will for a split second, but what in the world was going on in Dallas last week with Garrett and the team? I mean, what? That was the most bizarre post-season week between team and obvious firing for a head coach I've ever seen, Peter. Do we know what the hell that was about?
I just think it was the Dallas Cowboys showing some incredible loyalty to somebody who, as an organization, they love as much as any player / coach, as Jerry Jones has had in his 30 years in Dallas. And I know that sounds funny, but it isn't just Jason Garrett. It is Jim Garrett, the former scout and the former college football coach, Jason Garrett's father. But Jim Garrett was also a beloved member of the organization. And in some ways, Jerry Jones, I believe, almost feels like a surrogate dad after the death of Jim Garrett. He loves, he really loves Jason Garrett, and I think he felt, I'm going to give him every opportunity. Let's just see what happens. And then when we find somebody we love, if we do, then and only then are we going to let Jason Garrett go. I just think it was trying to show as much respect as they could.
So they were spending time last week considering bringing him back, or
I don't think that, even though they say that now, I don't think that was a serious consideration. Weird. But who knows? Maybe it's a 1 in 100. So why let him go until we have to? That's my only view of why this happened. But I think Jerry knew just from his paying customer, they did not want Jason Garrett back, and Jerry was borderline positive he wasn't going to bring him back. He just wanted to try to treat him with as much respect as he could. Which is,
I guess, then have McCarthy over to the house while he's still under contract. I mean, that sounds like something out of The Bachelor. We're just missing a windmill here, Peter. I mean, so all said and done, how different is the McCarthy that Dallas is getting than the one that Green Bay fired after losing to Arizona a couple of seasons ago?
Judging by the day and a half I spent with him a couple of weeks ago in Green Bay, I think he's going to have a different approach to analytics. I mean, Rich, this is a guy who showed me a slide on his deck, which he has ready to show NFL teams. And so I'm assuming that he showed this to David Tepper and Jerry Jones. He had a slide on his deck that showed a 14-member analytics / technology / video department. And he was going to devote 14 people. Now, would you think that is the way that Mike McCarthy would end up treating analytics? In my opinion, I would never have thought that he would have done that. So to me, I kind of look at this now and say, this is a real logical way that Mike McCarthy modernized his approach to football. And in my opinion, that adapt or die mentality that I believe he had helped him get the Dallas Cowboys job.
How about that? Couple more minutes left with Peter King here. The chicken egg with Matt Rule and Joe Judge. Did the Giants say Judge is our guy and then Rule goes to Carolina, or does he go to the Giants and say, I got something from Carolina, make sure I don't get on the plane, as Ian Rappaport said? How did those two hirings affect each other?
I trust Ian in that regard because I don't know the answer to that question yet. And I just believe that the New York Giants never, ever would have given $72 million over 7 years or $62 million over 7 years to a guy who'd come out of college football. And listen, with all due respect to Matt Rule, because I think he is an excellent NFL coaching candidate, to give this guy, the first-time NFL coach, the richest contract ever for a coach, the longest contract ever for a first-time coach in the NFL, knowing that of the 9 coaches this century who have come from college football without significant pro experience, so I don't count Pete Carroll or Bill O'Brien in there. One of them has won a playoff game, and that's Jim Harbaugh. To know all that at the time, I just find it incredible that the Carolina Panthers did that, and I just don't think there's any way the New York Giants would have agreed to that.
And who is Joe Judge? I mean, you're hearing.
I wish I knew, Rich. I've never talked to him in my life. I've never met him. He's one of those Patriots assistants who, until there comes a time, or until you get him on media night at the Super Bowl,
right,
there's no way you're ever really going to know him if you're in a position like I am. And so I think the beat guys probably knew him a little bit, but I really don't know anything about him other than, his resume, which is that he worked for Nick Saban for a year or two and now has worked for Bill for a while. And clearly he's got a very good pedigree. But I find it very odd that the New York Giants did not finish their interviews knowing that there was nobody else out there who wanted Joe Judge. So I don't know. Those are questions I think that remain to be answered.
Last one for you. What do the Browns do here? They're the only ones left. So, I don't know if you saw Joe Thomas's Twitter thread yesterday saying that he likes the position the Browns are in because if anybody wants to be a head coach now and leave their team, they know that this is the moment that they potentially could be the hottest candidate.
Yeah.
And there's only one team left. What do you make of the Browns and their leverage and what they're going to do here?
If I were them, I'd be very, very patient. I'd interview Josh McDaniels. I'd finish the round of interviews, then sit back, take a deep breath, and say, okay, what do we have here? There's no need for them to rush into it. It is vastly overrated. Oh, my God, we got to get a coach now so we can make sure that we get the assistants that we want. How did that turn out for Frank Reich getting hired on February 11th, even though two of the assistants were handpicked?
Right.
By McDaniels, and both of them turned out to be good. I get that. But the vast majority of coaches that he hired were done after the Super Bowl. So that's an overrated deal to make sure you get your guys in place. If I were them, personally, I would look very hard at Eric Bieniemy, Josh McDaniels, and Robert Saleh. And I know they're interviewing all of them, but all three of those guys should be head coaches in the NFL. All of them. And now they're going to have their choice of any one of them. And maybe there's some other little under-the-radar star who they love now. But Joe is right. There is no hurry to do this. And if I were them, I'd take their good, sweet time.
Peter, thanks for your time. Greatly appreciate it. Football Morning in America every single Monday. The Peter King podcast. I was on it last week. Enjoyed the experience. You should check it out. Thanks for the call, Peter.
Hey, all the best, Rich. Take care.
Right back at you. Peter King, at Peter_King on Twitter.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.